Welcome to It's Just Perfume, a Lucky Scent podcast where we talk all things perfume and how it enhances our lives. I'm your host, Stephen Guntarski. Now, we're all very familiar with the idea of big fashion houses coming out with a line of perfume or cosmetic brands coming out with perfume. These are the perfumes that we've grown up with and are very familiar with. And then there are also the perfume brands that were started by actual perfumers. Think of Caron or Flores in the UK. And this is kind of the accepted traditions of perfume. But what we've seen in the past few decades is the rise, especially in the niche world, the rise of these independent brands that are started by people who aren't necessarily perfumers, but have a distinctive vision and want to express this vision through perfume by working with perfumers and collaborating with them. And so we are so excited today to meet someone who has done exactly that so beautifully in her brand, Andrea Maack. So thank you for joining us, Andrea Maack.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You're visiting us from Reykjavik, Iceland?
Actually, Reykjanes, not Reykjavik.
Okay, so...
Yeah, I'm living in a geopark, protected UNESCO geopark, very close to an active volcano and very close to the Blue Lagoon.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
You didn't grow up there, then?
I didn't. I grew up in Reykjavik, but I moved around a lot. So
Yeah.
I also lived in Denmark. I lived in the States. So I lived all over. But yeah, I grew up in Reykjavik.
Yeah. Actually, this is wonderful. I want to know everything about your life before we start getting into the perfumes.
It's going to be long.
Get prepared. So you're obviously a very creative person. We're going to get into that and the projects that you were doing that led to perfume. But even before that, were you always a creative kid?
I think so. You know, I was always just kind of a little bit free-spirited. I think that was kind of my thing.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of just like thinking outside of the box. And I think growing up in Iceland at that time, like 80s, it is kind of smaller than people think. So I would just play around outside and we kind of had to figure things out ourselves. So I think the creativity probably comes from there,
Right.
that we kind of just played a lot outside and we had to do different things. And we kind of had to entertain ourselves. It's very different from today.
Yeah.
So we had to find creative things to do all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I kind of just leaned towards that, I think.
Now, was perfume a big thing for you growing up? Was your family into perfume?
No, it was not a big thing.
Right.
In Iceland, it wasn't a big thing at all, I think, until like the 90s. When Comme des Garçons actually had a shop in Reykjavik for 6 weeks. So that kind of changed the landscape. But perfume, I mean, we are on an island.
Yeah.
You know, so, and this is, of course, before the rise of niche. But my grandmother wore like Cartier. I think that's probably my earliest memory.
Right.
But people didn't wear so much perfume in Iceland, when I was growing up, at least.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So you went to London to study design?
To study art.
To study art,
Yeah.
okay.
But I came back to Iceland. I did my foundation course in Central St. Martin's. And then because I'm from Iceland, I wasn't able to go to school in London, unfortunately. I was kind of pissed that I was supposed to go back to Iceland. But actually, it was the best thing ever because the art school just started. So I was like, I think it was one of the first few years that we had a bachelor degrees in Iceland. And we had all these famous artists that wanted to come to Iceland. So I had like Ronnie Horn and all these like really super famous artists that came to teach me because everybody always wants to come to Iceland.
Yeah.
And so they just for the first few years, like they got so many amazing teachers, like super famous visual artists. They came and did courses for us. So actually I was quite lucky that I went to school in Iceland.
Yeah, it's all coming together, of course.
Yeah.
I know the series of photographs that Ronnie Horn took in Iceland.
Exactly.
And they're iconic and so beautiful.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm getting a really nice snapshot of this time and place. It's really exciting.
And they kind of shape you, you know. She was very like, because when I came from London, I had worked in fashion. And she was like, you have to leave fashion at the door. And because I had a bit of an attitude when I came in. I was like, I lived in London. Like, I want to go to school in London. She's like, you have to leave the fashion behind. And like, don't think about it for a while. Now you're in art school.
Yeah.
So you're starting like these people. Like you're like a nobody now. You could have to strip everything down.
Right.
And I kind of took that to heart and I thought, okay. And then the fashion came back later, you know. So I kind of really dove into the world of art in art school.
Yeah.
I wanted to be like, you know, I did performance art and like I was drawing and I think that taught me a lot just to leave the London life a little bit behind to kind of go all in with the teacher. So that was a great experience.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So I understand that the perfume came in as part of an art project
Yes.
that you were doing. Can
Yes.
you tell me about that?
Well, I graduated, and then actually soon after, I was invited to open a show at the Reykjavik Art Festival, which is a bit rare for somebody that just graduated, but this was a young gallerist, and she said, I just like your vibe, and maybe you want to do something a little bit different. And I had 6 months to work on the show, and I wanted to do something with like my background kind of in fashion. I thought maybe now is the time to, take the fashion and the London life and the beauty life a little bit back into the art.
Sure.
That was the idea.
Yeah.
And the first idea was to do a perfume, and I wrote it down. I remember it very clearly that I was without my laptop for a week. This is before social media, so I wasn't even on my phone.
Yeah.
I think I still have the sketches. I have all the books, so I wrote down stuff that I wanted to do, and then I wrote down perfume, and then I kind of kept coming back to it, and I thought maybe I should try to make a perfume. So I told her about the idea, and that's kind of how it came about. And then I kind of just approached it like an art project.
Yeah.
But I think now, in hindsight, because I took it a little bit further, I somehow managed to get in contact with one perfumer in France, in Grasse, and he liked the idea. I mean, I made the show out to be much bigger than it was. I was like, it's a Reykjavik Art Festival. I mean, we did have a lot of people coming,
Yeah.
but this was my first show. So he was like, yeah, sure, we can, we could do something. And I thought, let's do something totally different. I'll send you a drawing, and you send me a perfume. And he's like, what do you want to be in it? I was like, that's your job. I'll send you the drawing. It's just a show. It doesn't have to be good. I was almost hoping that it wouldn't be wearable because it's an art show. And then I sent him these beautiful pencil drawings, and he was thinking like, oh, it's very like white and black, I'll send you something. And then it actually arrived just like, as it is always, like a few hours before the opening. And I mean, this was actually a huge thing. The president in Iceland was there. Like there was all this art press.
Okay.
But that was smart. And actually it was a great fragrance. So I think now if he would have created something horrible, I would definitely be doing something else today.
Right.
Yeah.
It was meant to be.
Yeah, it was kind of meant to be.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So this is very interesting. So I had different ideas in my mind. I was imagining like a series of drawings and maybe a performance. And it seems like the actual piece is truly a conceptual art piece. It's the creation of a perfume. So it went through time, and this whole process was the art. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and then we also did have a performance at the opening, which was really fun, and which is probably why we got a lot of press out of it, because at the show I blew up the drawing into like strips of like perfume strips.
Yeah.
It was the actual original drawing. So people would come to the show, and then they would get to take a piece out, and then I would spray it. And some people actually thought it was like a perfume launch. And some of the art press was getting a little bit pissed. They were like, why are we invited to a perfume launch? But it was like they're making fun of what was going on. So I was just playing the girl, like I was on the sax floor or something.
Right.
So they didn't know that I was the artist. And then I was, do you want to try Smart? And like it just became like this totally funny thing. And then when they realized it, they were like, this is genius, this is so fun. And like then everybody wanted me to spray on them, and it became like a whole thing. And then it was in the press, and like it got a whole buzz around it. I think it's because of like that art and commerce kind of beauty.
Yeah.
It's always a bit of a taboo, so it was just, I was kind of poking fun at that a little bit.
Fragrance rarely gets used in art because I love art, and I also have a background in art. So I look for it when I see some sort of an intersection between art and perfume, and it's very rare. There are not many examples of that. So I love that this happened.
It has happened in history. I think Duchamp did a perfume, but that's it, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Marcel Duchamp did a perfume.
And he did that wonderful piece, L'air de Paris, which is just the sealed glass bubble of the air of Paris. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I love that. Who was the perfumer that you worked with?
So this was, it was a house in France, in Grasse. It doesn't exist anymore, but the guy that helped me, his name is Renaud, and he's actually worked with Naomi Gutzer. So he was the one that got me into, I think you have her brand.
Yeah.
So they're good friends of mine.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but he was not the actual perfumer, but like the perfumer that created Smart, she only created few and then she stopped. It was a girl. But, but Renaud was the guy that kind of helped me out in the beginning.
Right. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, what made you think of perfume as an artist?
I think it was just the fashion, because I also wanted to make clothing. That was the original idea.
Right.
So I kind of wanted to create this like superhuman that would be like, and Smart was actually supposed to be one product and one show, and it was supposed to be like the ultimate fragrance for the ultimate superhuman.
Yeah.
And then I was going to create like the ultimate dress. So I worked with a French fashion designer on that project, and we created like this beautiful paper dress. And then I created these weights out of marble. There was the fake weight. It was just the part of this whole project of like one superhuman. But the thing is, what happened is just that, you know, I created that one, and then we had the next show. And the French fashion designer that I was working with, he said, "Oh, I heard you made a perfume." I was like, "Where did you hear that?" He said, "It was in the art press." I was like, "Really?" He's like, "I want to do that." I was like, "Can you call the guy again?" And I was like, "Sure." So I called Renault again, and then we made another one, which is Craft, which is also still in the collection.
Yes.
So it just kind of, that sort of organically happened like that, you know, because it was just word by mouth. And then, you know, it was, of course it gets a little bit addictive, but the plan was, I was a little bit, should we make another one, you know, but, you know, and that's just how that ball started rolling.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Yeah.
So did you start selling them in
No.
Iceland? Oh, no.
That was never, I mean, this went on for like 2 or 3 years. I never wanted to sell them. What happened is when I started selling them is that after I had 3, so I was invited to go to the Fashion Biennale in Holland. So I did a 3rd fragrance there. And actually, I think that time I created like small, it was like 25 bottles of like 10 ml or something that we sold in the design store. And then I had like outside, because we all had this hut. It was like me, Rico, and it's like Comme des Garçons, all these really famous people that had like a hut inside a church for the Fashion Biennale.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I had, this was titled Sharp. It's not in the collection, but it was the 3rd fragrance that I created.
Yeah.
And I had like a bottle outside, and it kept getting stolen. I just remembered this other day, somebody was asking me, it had like a wire around it. I wish I had a photo of that. Like, it was stolen 3 times. And the guy in the end, he put like a wire around it. And I was like, maybe this is something. So when I came back to Iceland, the design director of the art school, she called me and said, "Listen, I'm opening a beautiful gallery space, design space, and I want you to open it with a perfume shop." So that was her idea. So I had 6 months to create a perfume shop, and this is kind of before pop-ups.
Yeah.
So that's when I created the brand. So actually, when people ask me now, like, why did you put your name on the bottle? I was like, it was just an art show. I never gave it another thought.
Right.
Yeah.
But it was at that moment where you actually made the decision that this is going to be...
we did a small... No, I didn't. We made a small production, but it was only supposed to be a show.
Yeah.
But then it was just kind of in the air. And then, you know, the stores kept calling me, and like, I just always said no. But then I got a call from an Italian distributor, and he said, "Listen," he was doing Pareto and all these big brands at the time. And he said, "Why don't you come to London and see me?" You know, and I was like, "Fine, I'll go." And he said, "I love the brand. You know, we should launch it at Axons. You know, are you ready? And can you be ready in 3 months?" And I just said, "Sure." And then I called my husband. I said, "We have to create a brand in 3 months." And that's what we did. And then we showed up in Milan 3 months later with the brand. And that was that.
That's so interesting. I mean, it's clear where this was coming from. It comes definitely from art and your experience as an artist. But once the decision was made to actually make this a commercial brand, what would you say is the vision you had for this brand? What would set this apart from all the other perfume brands out there?
I think in the beginning I was just in denial. I think I kind of thought of it as a fun thing to do, but I'm going to be totally honest, I didn't really take it seriously, even if we went into a lot of stores.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really in control at that time. So I said, I'll just roll with the punches. You know, we went into distribution all over the world, and I wasn't ready. This was just like an art project. So at that time, I don't think I really like mentally took the decision that I was going to create it into a brand. It was just something that kept rolling, and I didn't really feel like I was that much a part of it anymore. So it went on like that for a little bit. But what happened is, once we saw that the brand was working, I just thought, listen, maybe I should, you know, take this seriously now and create a brand that I really want to create. Now that we see that people want to buy it. And then I said, listen, I'm going to do this now how I want to do it. And that's when we made the bottles and everything. So that was a turning point, you know, 10 years ago. Now we're doing the 10-year anniversary. So that I decided to move to, thank you. We decided to move to Milan. So I sold everything in Iceland. We sold the house, everything. And we just packed up and I said, listen, if we're going to do this, I want to make the bottle that I want to make. I want it to be like super high end. So in that I think was the turning point of creating it into a
Yeah.
brand. And I found a team in Milan. I said, listen, I can't do everything. I want somebody else to take a look. So I had an architect who worked with me on the bottle, designer that did the logo. And like, so that became, for me as an artist, I need to have a project. So that was the project.
Yeah.
And it took a long time to perfect the brand.
Of course.
But I'm very happy now because people do ask me like, you know, when you created the brand, what were you thinking? And we weren't really in a rush, you know? And I think that was very key because I don't think we've had like a single return because of quality. I mean, I think as an artist, I went way too far, you know, like the pump is custom made. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous.
Wow.
We can never be out of stock, you know,
Yeah,
I cannot buy it in China, you know. So I think we just went that far with like because I was always thinking, what if I'm the customer? Like, what would I want, you know? So I think it was really worth it after the brand started blowing up that we did that because we've never had any issues.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the ideal way to get a brand.
If you can,
yeah.
you know, and you're not in a rush,
Yeah.
it's the best way to do it.
And then apparently Lucky Scent was one of the first retailers
Finally
to take the
met
brand
Franco.
on.
Yeah, I mean, it was. And that was also kind of like a reality, you know,
Yeah.
when we could start getting the first orders in. And you have to think of it as a business, you know, especially at that time we were doing the distribution ourselves. But I actually have, before my art life, I was in retail. So I lived in London and I worked in retail before I started art school. So I love actually retail. And I had a small shop in Reykjavik in my 20s. We brought all these amazing designers in from London when I was in art school. So I've always been busy. So even when I was in art school, I had the shop and like my only customer was Björk. So she would come in and buy everything. And the general public in Iceland was so angry that I was selling dresses for 500 euros or something. They were like, this is ridiculously expensive. I mean, now it's normal.
Right.
At that time, they were like, this is just a disgrace.
Yeah.
But Björk, she would always come in and she would like buy everything. It was crazy.
Yeah, your only customer was
She was my
Björk.
only customer.
This is
for a
the
very
most
long
Icelandic
time.
thing I've ever heard in
I
my
know.
life.
It was a tiny little store. It's called the Licorice Store. And she would come in and buy everything.
The licorice store. I'm obsessed with that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, when Lucky Scent took the brand on, I'm sure the sales just got big suddenly. Was that difficult to keep up with?
I mean, it's changed a lot over the years, you know, how you think of that. But like, you have to be prepared.
Yeah.
But because I did a bit of a difficult thing with the bottle, we had to make a lot of bottles.
Yes.
You know, for the first run, in that sense, I was quite lucky that, you know, because this is created in Parma in Italy, we had the smallest run, but it's still a lot of bottles,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So we made sure that we had stock. But yeah, it's difficult to figure all that out.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially when you're a privately owned business.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have to sort of figure everything out. But I actually quite like business now.
Yeah.
Because I think if there are a lot of artists, they're scared to say that. But of course, artists, perfume or no perfume, they are their own brand.
Yeah.
So you have to learn how to take care of that business, you know. And for me, I quite enjoy it, actually. I think it is quite creative because I'm forming my path. And once I went out of the distribution and I started to do it on my own, it really started to take off. Because I think you have to have your vision of where you want the brand to be. I kind of had to find my people, you know, I have to find my covenant, you know.
Yes.
And that's kind of what we've done, you know, and very unapologetically. We don't really try to follow like trends or what other brands are doing.
That's incredible. And that's what makes it so unique.
Yeah, and it can be scary and it can be a little bit lonely, you know, but you have to, I kind of just wanted to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And if I'm not doing that and I'm not enjoying it, then why?
That's how you're going to get good perfume. You can't really follow the trends. You just
No.
have to follow the story that you want to tell and the vision that you have. And yours is obviously incredibly unique.
And of course that has evolved over the years with the perfumers. I mean, in the beginning, you know, we were working with smaller houses, but now I'm very spoiled that I like, you know, I can work with amazing perfumers, but I never request like a specific perfumer, you know, and I like to blind test. So even now when I'm testing, I just tend to choose the same one. And even now with Muse that we're going to try later on, I'm working on something else. And I blind tested a lot when I was in Paris.
Yeah.
And the same perfumer, she only made one. And they were like, I cannot believe you picked out that one. And it was nothing that was in the brief. So it's just very strange how that works.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So could you talk me through that whole process of coming up with a new perfume?
Yes.
So you came up with a brief and then multiple perfumers came up with mods?
Not always. Sometimes it's just one. It has changed a lot over the years. But for me, I mean, few times I've kind of tried to dip my toe into like ingredients, but I just decided early on that wasn't really my job. You know, I want to respect the perfumer.
Yeah.
So I'm very clear about what my job is, and I think I'm just good at picking out, getting my vision to work. And then it's just, you know, it has to be some kind of an energy. So, for example, the Celine that did Flux and Sing with me were just very similar spirits. And you kind of have to meet the perfumer as well in person. And she's very open to thinking outside the box. So, I mean, I had this idea that I wanted to work with berries. And I talked to Celine about it. And I said, like, berries and wood. And she's like, it's not something that is done, but, you know, we can try it. And then we got really excited about it together. So sometimes the brief is, you know, it can't be like nature, or it can't just be something that I'm thinking about at the moment. In the beginning, it was more the artwork, but it has kind of evolved. I think now I just selfishly want to work on what I'm thinking each time, and that's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did Muse begin? Did it begin with its name?
Actually, I didn't come up with the name.
Really?
No, I was in LA a year ago, and I was introduced to this amazing artist. I always love to meet artists. Her name is Regina Yasti, and she came to my opening. So I had an opening, and she came the day before. I invited her on the wrong day. She's the only one that I invited on the wrong day. So she called me. She was in the lobby of the hotel. She said, "Hi, it's Regina. I'm at the opening." I was like, "Oh my God, she's on the wrong day." But I went down. I put on a dress, and I said, "Listen, I'm really sorry. I know you drove all this way. Let's have a drink." You know. So we went to the bar. And she was like, "You know, I was really thinking about this 10-year anniversary. Like, I think we should do something." And then she sketched something. Actually, I forgot the napkin in Iceland. She sketched the whole thing on a napkin on a hotel bar. She said, "You know, you should be your own muse, and the name should be Muse." And then she even sketched the whole thing. We just took it from the napkin.
Fantastic.
And then I said, "You know what, I love it." And I said, "You know what, I'm going to give myself some time to create a floral, because I think it should be like a celebratory thing. You know, it should be like a bouquet of flowers. Like, I'm going to pat myself on the back. I'm going to be my own muse.
To celebrate
I'm going
your
to celebrate
10-year.
it. I think we don't celebrate enough, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
So I said, "Yeah, I'm going to give myself a pat on the back. It's been 10 years. And she's like, "Yeah, just call me when you have the right floral." And actually it took a while. It took a year. But that's how that happened, you know.
Oh, that's incredible. Now, I know Regina, she comes to Scent Bar as a customer.
Yeah.
She's a magical person.
Yeah, she is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just fun to meet people like that.
Yeah, and a calligrapher. So she's doing the labels, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Yes. So she did the label, and, you know, she came up with the name, actually.
Yeah.
And we just stuck with that. It was the first idea is usually the best one.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So I have not smelled this yet, and I'm very excited to smell. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we know that it's a floral because you said that.
Yes.
So, but I know nothing else besides that.
Yeah, I mean, it has taken me 10 years to create a proper, I think this is our first true floral. And when I was in Paris last time, they were asking me, like, "Why haven't you created a floral? You're the only brand we know," because they analyzed me like a year ago, because I don't really like my collection to be analyzed too much, but they're like, "Let us analyze the collection. Maybe you're missing something. You know, you should really do that." I was like, "Fine." And then they came back. It was like, "Well, the only, you know, consensus is that you just don't have a floral, and everybody starts with a floral." So they were like, "You're doing pretty well for somebody who doesn't do a floral."
Who were these people that were doing the analysis?
IFF.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
My team in Paris, they're like, you know, they like to kind of dissect what I'm doing,
Got it.
but that's their job. But I was
IFF, by the way, International Fragrance and Flavors.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so they have offices around the world. I know they have one in New York and obviously Paris. Interesting. So the lab basically said, let's look at your collection as a whole and see how we can approach the next step.
Yeah, I mean, they did suggest that I would try a floral.
Yeah.
But we did a couple of tries, but then this one was the one that I
See
liked.
what's going on here.
Yeah. Actually, it is, this one, I did not find it in the floral brief. It was for another brief.
Okay.
So it was not actually this one. It was not in the floral brief.
Okay.
Those were all I know. But this was in another brief.
Oh,
in
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I just took it home, and it was the one that stuck with me. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Well, let's give this a little spray.
Yeah.
Now, I'm guessing Regina has smelled this.
Yes, of course. Yeah. She had to approve it,
She
of
had
course.
to give her
yeah, for
thumbs
sure.
up to it. Well, I don't know if you knew this, but I'm a floral guy.
I know.
I really love my florals.
I know.
Oh, that's so pretty. So pretty.
I mean, we wanted to lean in. I thought, since we're doing this, let's just lean into the romantic, you know. Let's
Yeah.
just go all out and like pretty, romantic, like over the top, like,
It's
you know.
very pretty, and it's sweet
Yeah, it's sweet.
in a lovely way. I'm gonna say, my first impression is
Yeah.
I feel it's tuberose, because sometimes tuberose has a slightly fruity component to it. Well, at least in tuberose perfumes, and I get that. There's something kind of delicious, like in my mouth, almost like I'm eating a nice candy.
Yes.
Not overly sweet. It's
Yeah.
just the correct amount of
Yeah.
sweetness for a floral like this. So pretty, and a touch of creaminess too.
Yeah. So do you want to know what's in?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So it's gardenia heavy.
Okay, yeah.
And as you know, gardenia, you can't really extract it,
Right.
you know. So it's going to be up to the perfumer. So I worked with Tomati Michalon, which is an amazing, this is her expertise. I mean, she created Flower Bomb by Victor and Rolf.
Iconic.
Yeah, iconic. So she put a twist on the flower. So it is a little bit of coconut, mango cream, gardenia, and then the pea. I really wanted to put something else in there.
Yeah.
So it's the sweet pea, and then some cashmere and sandalwood.
Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know this, but recently we have been talking about sweet pea and how there needs to be more sweet pea in
Really?
fragrance. So yeah,
Interesting.
obviously you felt it in the
Yeah,
air
I think
and
so.
satisfied
I probably
this.
picked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it just has that perfect amount of like, for me, it's floral enough for me to like love it.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not too sweet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it's dancing on that line.
Yeah.
But I also didn't want to put too much of a twist. I wanted to lean into so I'm happy that you think it is sweet and floral.
Yeah,
And like,
yeah.
you know, like that. Because I thought if we're doing this, let's just do it.
Absolutely. And knowing the rest of the collection,
Yeah.
I feel that it's such a perfect complement to all of the other fragrances. I mean, the one from the brand that I wear personally
Yeah.
the most is Craft, because
Yeah.
I love incense so
Yeah.
much. And this particular one has this lightness to it,
Yeah.
because I feel that incense could become kind of sticky and
Yeah.
really lean into labdanum and these
Yeah.
kinds of resinous notes. But with this one, there's a nice little effervescence
Yeah.
that is so unusual for incense, and I love that.
It's nice that it's still in the collection after all those years. Actually, you should try something else then. Because I forgot that you like crafts, so I have something for you.
Oh,
I'm very interested to see what you think of this one. And if you connect it to craft.
oh, that's so pretty. Yeah, I get woods. Maybe some cedar, and I get that nice kind of damp wood smell that I love so much. Maybe it's cashmere.
Yeah,
Oh, that's beautiful. Is this something that's going to be coming out in the collection?
I think so. I quite like it. I'm
Yeah.
testing it now. I'm always like, I'm trying to make the ultimate sauna, apparently. That's what they tell me. It's like a
Okay.
luxurious spa sauna, but
Yeah.
I really, out of everyone, this is the one I like the most of, like the saunas that I've tried to make.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So I'm just interesting since you mentioned, I always have something I'm working on. So I
Oh,
wanted you to test
yeah,
it. Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Now, do you wear perfumes from other brands, or what was the fragrance that got you into your love for perfume?
It was probably the Com
Yeah.
line, you know. I've probably have all of those. I did collect them throughout the years, but I went to the original Comme des Garçons store in London before they became Dover Street.
Right.
So I used to go in there, and they actually had some of the first fragrances that Ray created. So I think those, like the Avignon, you know,
Yeah, for sure.
kind of got me into it. And then, of course, you know, when you started rising, I do test a lot, you know. But I sometimes wear other fragrances, but like I kind of usually wear something that I'm working on because I need time, you know, to decide if I'm going to launch it or not.
Yeah.
So I usually have stuff in my bag, like 6 months before I launch it at
Yeah.
least. But I love to test, but it can be tricky though. I mean, I was in Paris, and to see like Saint Honoré, like every brand in Paris has a store there.
Yeah,
You know,
of
it's
course.
crazy. There's so much to try. But sometimes it can get a little bit confusing. I think that I just have to kind of stick to my plan and my vision.
Yes.
And being on the geopark in the middle of nowhere can help, you know. Because I just, somehow these ideas just resonate, and I kind of don't want to be too confused when I'm working now that the brand has changed and we're much bigger and everything is changed from 10 years ago. I think I kind of need to keep that innocence of like creating stuff that I want to create.
Definitely.
And that's, I mean, I like to know what's going on and I do test and it's fun. But I kind of think I just have to stick to what I want to do.
Absolutely. I'm sure there's constant noise and distraction, especially when you're looking at other brands. And it's such a competitive field now because a lot of people have gotten into perfume in the past few years that who maybe were not interested in perfume in the past. So there are so many new brands that have popped up recently. And so I can imagine this kind of constant pressure to come up with something new to capture the attention of influencers in the greater world, all of that. It must be a lot, but I think that's so smart to go back to the voice that had you create Smart in the first place and just trust that voice.
Yeah, and I think you just have to give people a little bit more credit, you know, that they want to try something different.
Yeah.
And even with the different markets, it's, you know, I'm pushing some of the markets to try something a little bit out of the box. And it usually works because you can't put people in a box like that. You know, and I want to give people that love perfume, not only that have been into niche for a while, but also the people that are getting to know niche. I want to give them more credit than just, you know, picking up a trend, because it's so personal that I think that people, if you are investing in a bottle of a niche fragrance, it needs to mean something to you. It's not necessarily a trend that you're following, and you shouldn't have to impress anyone. It's for you. So I think we should give people a little bit more credit to try other stuff that's a bit out, you know, outside of the box.
Definitely.
But maybe that's just my crew, you know, they like something a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. Now, this is kind of an abstract question, but obviously you're Icelandic. You grew up there. You're based in Iceland still. Do you feel that there's something in the Icelandic sensibility that we can see in your brand? Does Iceland influence the fragrances?
I mean, everybody thinks so. But like, it's for me, I'm a little bit too close. But like when we actually created the brand, when I was working with the team in Milan, they said, listen, why don't you just go make some drawings, you know, and we'll come back and we'll extract from it what we see. And I said, sure. And I had a great time. I had a studio in Milan and I was just like painting. And then they came back and they're like, oh, this is interesting. I was like, yeah, pretty happy with it. Like, oh, there's snow, there's a mountain. I was like, I don't think so. They're like, yeah, it's very Icelandic. I was like, oh my God, it is Icelandic. So I think it's just, you can't escape it. You know, it's just there. And I think maybe it's Iceland is a little bit, it's different from like the rest of Scandinavia. I don't know what it is. We're kind of like that in between, and we kind of just do what we want. You know, we are different from like the Danes and the Swedes. And our sensibility and how we think, it can be good and it can be bad. You know, we can also be our worst enemy, you know, but we always, we have so many creatives in Iceland. It's just ridiculous. If you think about like 300, 400,000 people, we have all these musicians, we have all these famous artists. Like, I think people, when you're there, you kind of give yourself the freedom to create stuff. And I think we're just not that scared. You know, we just think like, whatever. If people aren't going to like that, we're not scared of like people not liking it. I think we're not really that self-conscious in a way compared to maybe the other Scandinavian nations. So I think that it's probably, there's definitely some Iceland like fearlessness in there.
Now, I know of one other Icelandic brand that makes perfume outside of yours, but is there a community, a perfume community in Iceland?
People love perfume. It's there. Of course, we have Fishersund, which is great. Jonsi is really dedicated to what he's doing. So it's great to have another brand. But otherwise, there isn't. It's difficult to. We are quite small, but I think people rally around us. I have an amazing customer base in Iceland. People have the old bottle. I was in one of the stores the other day, and I don't even have that bottle. Like the first one ever from the show. Somebody had the old bottle and he's like, oh, look, I have a little bit left of like Sharp. I was like, this is like 10 years. They really they kind of rally behind us, you know. And when I first opened the store, actually, a friend of mine, she waited in line. She's a famous Icelandic fashion designer. And I mean, this is when I had the pop-up store, you know, and she waited in line to buy the first 3 fragrances, and she wanted me to sign them and put them in the box. And I was like, why are you the first one in line? Like, why? And she paid full price. At that time was probably around $60 or something a bottle. And she said, I'm gonna pack this and I'm gonna put it in my ceiling and storage, and this is gonna be something. And I was like, how do you know that? She was like, I just know, and she still has it. I met her and I sat next to her in a wedding like a year ago, and she's like, oh, I still have those. I have the first 3. You don't have them? I was like, oh my God, you still have those?
I mean, what an honor.
Yeah.
She believed.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people like
vision.
rallied behind
Definitely.
us from early days.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's cool.
What keeps you inspired?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah.
I think I'm just always searching for something. I'm that annoying artist. I'm just never happy with it's a curse. I think people are either born with it or not. I'm just never really satisfied. I'm never super happy. I can always think of things that I can change, and I always want to perfect it. And I'm never of course I'm happy with the stuff that I'm bringing out, but I always think, let's try this. And I kind of like to be challenged, you know, like now we're working with social media and like the way we're marketing the brand. And when I decided to do the bottle, I wanted it to be like an online business, and everybody thought I was crazy. And this was 10 years ago.
Yes.
I mean, the Italians told me that the internet would be dead in 10 years. I was like, I don't think so.
They're right.
Exactly. So I think it's just, I like to challenge myself, and then the inspiration can come from anywhere. I think I don't know, just everywhere.
Definitely.
Nowhere,
well, it just sounds like you have a curious mind.
Yeah,
a very creative, curious mind.
Yeah, I kind of I need to be doing something different. If I don't want to stand still, and I don't want to get comfortable. So whether it's the business side or the creative side or whatever we're doing, I always need a challenge. Which can also be annoying because sometimes you're just tired. But I just need a challenge all the time. But yeah.
Yeah.
Fragrance is just a crazy world, to be in.
Now, I've met you. I've had the pleasure of meeting you several times now. Yeah. So you've been through LA several times through the past few years. Yeah. Are you constantly traveling, or is LA a place that you come to more regularly than other places?
I am, because what happened is that I think it was during the pandemic when we opened the web store. It was just an interesting experiment because we saw that people were purchasing here, and because of course I'm an Icelandic brand, and usually you would probably go to Scandinavia or Europe, but it was 90% of people were buying in the US, and this was our area. Yeah. So I started coming 2 or 3 years ago, and now we come every 4 months. I mean, this is kind of, and now I'm just focusing on LA and around here and the States. This is our place, I don't know why, but I love it here. There's something about just the vibe, and I don't know, it's become like a home away from home. It's kind of far to come here. I might have to move for a little bit, but for me, it was just something kind of clicked, Yeah. And now we're working with an agency here, so we're growing here, and it's become I just follow the vibe, you know? Yeah. So this is the vibe now, and I'm actually happy that this is the vibe, because I think there's a bit of a void here, and I kind of think that we fit in. Yeah. And I love it here.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you feel at home here and you come so often. Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. So you're probably meeting people all the time who actually wear your fragrances.
I do. Sometimes I kind of smell them in the street. Really? What do you wear? Yeah. It's interesting. I think it's mostly interesting to just feel how the fragrances are different on everybody. Oh, right. I was meeting somebody yesterday, and he was wearing Coven, and it kind of took me a while, because Coven is our biggest fragrance. Yes. I should be able to recognize it instantly. And I was a bit are you layering it with something? Because it was so different on him. I was I know it's Coven, right? But what is it? So it's just how the fragrances are on different people really intrigues me. And actually Osmo, somebody was wearing it the other day. It's become one of my favorite. And I was it's a girl that's working for me. And I was why are you wearing something else? I was a bit why are you wearing it? He was it's Osmo. I was really? I just didn't recognize it. It smelled so good on her. I was did you layer it with something? Yeah, yeah. And I suppose if you're listening to this and you're not familiar with the brand, of course, I would say you have to smell Coven, because your brand is very known for this one fragrance, Coven, for sure. Yeah, it's become a whole thing. And it was the one that I was told, and this is a true story, when I wanted to release it at the time with my distribution partner at the time, And he said, it's a fun little project. And he said, I have been in this business for a long time. And one thing I can tell you is it will never sell. And I just thought, challenge accepted. And this was 10 years ago. But so that's what I mean. Like don't judge what people are going to like.
No, for sure. Or actually keep going to that guy and find out what his predictions are and do the opposite, and you'll be good.
Yeah, exactly.
That's amazing. So Coven, damp earth. It's amazing. I've never been to Iceland, but I can just imagine the cold, damp earth is giving that scent.
Yeah, I mean, the original inspiration was picking potatoes from the dirt in an actual place, which is my grandfather's cabin in the highlands of Iceland. So I used to go there as a child. Usually I don't like to be so sentimental and I don't really like to go back and find a memory like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I was drawn to that at that time, but it was just something that was going on in my life. So I just was drawn to that memory.
Yeah.
And I kind of was obsessed with creating a fragrance that smelled like that memory of picking up the potatoes, because we used to put them down and then we would pick them up when they were ready in the fall. And if it was raining, it was kind of extra special. So I just really had a very specific scent in mind.
Yeah.
And it took a really, really long time I think they were getting quite annoyed with me because I was like, no, we have to go back to the drawing board. But at that time, it was more like an art project. So I kind of had the luxury of just spending a lot of time on something. But I think it's hard to copy. It's just one of those because I think I just put so much in it of myself that it's just uncopyable.
That's why it's such a successful scent, because the story is so complete and immersive. And I can completely understand why people in Los Angeles would want to wear fragrance like this, because it's exactly the opposite of what we have here.
Yeah.
I fantasize about this idea of being on a potato field in northern Iceland looking at the aurora borealis. I mean, you can't get further away from LA reality.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was you or your husband, the last time we met, you actually said that from your home you can see the aurora borealis. Yes. I mean, obviously this is going to make things out of Iceland that much more magical, because that's a magical experience.
It is a magical experience. I mean, I've seen it my whole life, but it is, I can understand why people travel far, and sometimes we are very spoiled. We do staycations and we travel around the country, but most Icelanders, they kind of get a bit tired of it when they turn 20. They travel a lot as children, and then it is a tiny little place. You know, I think people don't even realize we don't have a Starbucks. Actually, Starbucks is coming for the first time.
Yay!
We don't have any chains. It's still very raw. And when people go to the countryside to travel, they think there's a cafe on every corner. There's nothing. You have to get gas. you have to get gas. You have to pack coffee. Even if you're just going the typical, the glacial beach and all the, the black beach and everything, it is very raw still, So of course we're spoiled, sometimes I see the aurora, I'm just lying in bed. I'm sometimes I go outside and I look at it. Sometimes I'm tired.
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, this is such a crude theory to come up with, but no wonder it's such a hotbed of creativity. If there's nothing else to do, you're going to practice your music or your art and become really good at it.
Yeah, I think you do that, and also you just you don't see everything. Of course, it's changed now so much. You can see everything online and through social media, but I think we kind of like to do our own thing, and we kind of like to challenge. I think that is a little bit our signature. So we have the creative, and then we have that we're just not scared. I think that's the mixture.
Now, I understand that the packaging, a lot of the details in these actual objects are more sustainable and environmentally aware. I feel that this is also very Scandinavian to consider this, and that's amazing.
Yes.
So tell us some of the details.
So the cap is an injection molding, so it's not plastic, so it's actually wood that can go into a landfill. And there's one company in Paris that makes this. So exactly, I hope they stay on forever, because there's one company that can make this.
So it'll decompose?
Yeah, it will decompose.
Incredible.
Yeah. And then, of course, the bottle is made in Parma in Italy. And then when we worked on the packaging, the outer packaging, because it used to be like that in perfume, I'm sure you guys know this, like they used to be about the big packaging,
Yes.
and like, but I'm sure that you also know that that takes a lot of space,
Yes,
and like, you know, a lot of carbon footprint and all that. So we actually decided to eliminate everything a few years ago. And actually this is, even if it has like beautiful printing on it, it's sugar, so it's not plastic. So we work with a Swedish company on the packaging, and you know, we have as little paper as we can.
Yeah.
There's no inner fitment, and I have not had one comment, not one, where people have said the packaging is too small or like it's missing a plastic wrap. Not one, you know, and that's a true story.
That's
so I
amazing,
think
yeah.
people are getting more conscious, you know, and of course the star of the show is the bottle. I mean, that's the one you're gonna keep. So we did start thinking about this a long time ago,
Yeah.
and I'm happy we did that. So because I think a lot of brands have to pivot quickly because of what's, you know, people are of course more conscious of what's going on. So we kind of wanted to be paving the way of like showing that it can be done. It's not that difficult.
Yeah. And am I correct in the inspiration of this bottle is a
Yes.
shard of obsidian?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we used to have a lot of obsidian volcanic rock in the highlands of Iceland. It was picked up by tourists in the 80s and the 90s. I'm sure there's in a lot of homes in America. Beautiful black stones. I tried to go and steal some the other day. There's not a lot left, but it's my favorite stone. It's just found naturally in nature. And yeah, it was just a perfect match to the glass. And then we kind of just wanted a tiny little spin. I wanted to keep it classic, but just a little slit. And sometimes I like simple ideas.
Yeah.
That's kind of my thing. So that nobody's done a bottle that's just like, you know, there's a tiny little detail. But the difficult part was making it so it would never fall.
Yes, exactly.
So that took a lot of tries, but
Right.
it never falls.
Yeah.
You know, you can lie, you can do.
I have to say, I love your presence in social media. You're a natural. You just have so much charisma on the TikToks and the Instagram. Do you enjoy doing that?
I do. In the beginning, it was a bit scary, but I think it's funny because my social manager, he was like, you're my easiest client because we just come and shoot in one take everything. I think it's years of this, you know, it's years of like, it's just coming out now. So we're just letting it out. Yeah. But I think it's also important to put a face on the brand, you know, because when I'm researching brands, I kind of want to know a little bit more.
Yeah, of course.
It's not just about the fragrance. I
No,
want to know who
it's-
it is. And like, I have met some of the people behind some of the brands and they're great. I'm like, why aren't you showing a little bit more?
Yeah.
Like, I would like to know. And, you know, we have to stand behind what we do. So we are made in Iceland. We do have a facility there. We do use Icelandic water, alcohol. I kind of, you know, I think we just have to show that a little bit.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it is easy just to tell all those stories because there are so many, so they just come out, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a great way to connect with people that love perfume, and it's been great for me because perfume talk is huge and people want to know. And then now I'm kind of getting them involved. We were teasing a little bit about Muse, and I got so many comments, which was great. So it's just fun to involve the audience like that.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, but it just happens, just comes naturally.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
We don't like to over-add it. You know, it just comes out.
It does come across as incredibly natural, and of course, it helps that you are so comfortable telling stories and
there
being
just
in front
are
of the
so
camera.
many.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny now when I thought about the 10 years because you always think about the end goal. I used to always just think about the end goal. And I was thinking about this the other day when we were reflecting on the 10 years. I was like, why am I thinking about the end goal?
Yeah.
There isn't an end goal. I mean, the journey has been amazing.
Of course.
Like all the people that I met, I traveled everywhere. I mean, I think at one point we did a show in Russia. I had like 15 light boxes. I forgot about all this stuff. Like we traveled everywhere, you know, and I think that I've been able to do that over the 10 years is a gift because like it's not easy to have a business. I mean, so few of them survive, but like the journey is up and down, you know, and like sometimes I just didn't want to do it anymore, but like you always come back and I think we always bounced back. There's been a few times where I was just like, can I do this? You know, and like people just start buying it again. And it's like, almost like the universe is like, where's Coven? What's happening? It's like, okay, people are rallying around me, but like, I mean, you have to lean into the good and the bad and just enjoy the journey. And it's been like, I think I'm just going to enjoy the journey now. I don't know. We'll see what the end goal will be.
Of course. Maybe there's no point in even me asking the next question because I think you've already answered it. But is there a goal like 10 years from now?
I don't know. I think I'm just going to run with it. You know, I enjoy being in control. You know, I don't feel like I'm in competition with anyone. I enjoy the artistic process of, creating fragrances that are different, are intriguing. Of course, I also enjoy the business side of it now that we've grown, but I don't have an end goal in mind. I would like to be privately owned. I would like to be my own boss. Yeah, I think that's kind of like, I just want to do, and I kind of like to have my covenant around me. So like, kind of want to do like a Rick Owens, I think. He's his own boss. So I think I just want to be my own boss in fragrance.
Well, I mean, I see this vision happening.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already
We'll
happening.
see what happens.
Yeah, and we will be with you this whole journey.
Yeah, and I just thank you guys so much for the support, and finally got to meet Franco and Adam. So it's been great to come and see everybody. Like, lovely.
It's always wonderful talking to you. I always enjoy our conversations. Now I'm so happy that everyone else can listen in as well and be part of this conversation. It's really inspiring as a creative person to speak to someone who has a vision and is executing it. And I can imagine the thrill, in many ways, even better than making fine art, because you touch the lives of so many people.
Yeah, that's...
Not just a small handful of people who are interested in art, but people are actually living in these perfumes, and you're part of that.
Yeah, and I think that's probably why I stuck to it, because as an artist, this is a product that's connected to emotions. I think that's probably one of the answers that I would give, like, why did I keep doing it? I mean, I could have had an art career. I was doing pretty well. But I think that part of it is what intrigued me, that people wear it and they have all these stories, like, having a product which doesn't have such an emotional connection is a little bit different. So I think that's probably why, like, all those stories, and like, just, I mean, it is crazy to think about it, like how many people wear it all over the world. It is a little bit overwhelming. I don't really go there. I don't know why. But when I think about it, it's kind of crazy. So to think about like how many, and I mean, the stories I get are crazy. Like people message me on social media, like I wore it, to a wedding, or like it helped me through a funeral. I can be morbid as well, like happy and morbid. And I think perfume should be like that. I just don't like it when it's always like, it doesn't always have to be happy. It doesn't always have to be, supposed to inspire. Sometimes it's just, life isn't like that. You know? And if life is a perfume bottle, it has its ups and downs, you know. And I think that's also perfume. It has its ups and downs.
You had just said, I could have continued being an artist, but you are.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I could have had a different career.
Yeah,
I always imagined after this that I would have like a huge sculpture studio, like just being, in a basement somewhere, sculpting away. But no, it's true. But like, it would have just have been a different career, I think.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, you were just saying how smart that first perfume was basically a conceptual art piece.
Yes.
Like getting to the point of having a bottle of fragrance was the art itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And look what you're still doing all these years later.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an enjoyable process for sure. Yeah. It's with perfume, and I think also when you meet people in the industry, like everybody has a story. I also like to ask people like what's yours, like, so when I ask people like what was the fragrance that kind of got you, even when I speak to journalists and so on, everybody has a story, like there was always a particular fragrance or a particular story that got people hooked on perfume. So there's so many different ones. But
fragrance is so personal, isn't it?
It is personal. So I think that's what I love about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, kind of peels away the layers of people a little bit.
This has been so enjoyable, an incredible treat, and I feel like I know you so much better, and I can smell these things in the fragrances now, all of the stuff that we talked about, and that's such a treat to be able to do that. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to chat.
And I hope that you continue to check out our podcast, and we will have other wonderful creative people, brand owners, perfumers, members of the Scent Bar family, just talking about all things perfume. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.